should you be maxing out the TSP, your thrift savings plan? Should you be putting more money in there than you are right now, right? For some people, it's a question of should they max it out? For some people, it's like, okay, maybe you can't afford to max it out. But what can you do? Can you put a little bit more in? But the real question is that the best place for your money? If you have some extra resources, maybe you got a pay raise, a step increase, whatever it is, should that extra money go into your TSP? And most of you know my stance that obviously in retirement, it's great to have as much money as you possibly can, but we know in real life, there's other priorities as well. So today we're going to talk about this, of where your money should be going. And again, if you're new here, my name is Dallin Hawes, financial planner, serving you guys, helping you guys retire comfortable and confident. And we're going to talk about where your money should be going. It's not always the TSP. Spoiler alert, right? TSP is a great place often, but we have to get our priorities straight, make sure it works for our entire life, not just our retirement. Okay, so we're diving right in. So as many of you know, a basic foundation of your financial life is your emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, but you got a bunch of money in your TSP, but you only have $100 in your checking account, well, you're in trouble if anything happens. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to have an emergency fund. 6 to 12 months is a rule of thumb. You got to find a middle ground that works for you. That's number one, have an emergency fund. Now, if you have that, okay, what's step number two? Do you have any debt, right? Outside of mortgage, do you have any debt, any high interest debt? Because guess what? You could put money in the TSP and you can get growth over time. But let's say the C fund, the S fund, they have averaged about a 10% growth rate every year for the past 100 years. But if you're paying 15%, 20% on a credit card or on whatever, then you're losing money by not paying down your debt. If you're putting money in the TSP, you have to pay down your debt first. Now, obviously, you certainly want to always get the TSP match. You want to put at least 5% of your salary into the TSP to get the match. That's free money, 100% return right out the bat. But once that's done, you got to pay off debt. You got to get things paid off. My rule of thumb is between 7 to 8%. If your interest is higher than 7 to 8% on anything, you should pay that off before you start putting extra into the TSP. So those are the first two. Okay, make sure you have an emergency fund and make sure your high interest debt is paid off. Okay, once those are taken care of, okay, let's start looking at the other areas of life, right? We know that retirement is often a big financial goal for a lot of people, right? If you're listening to this, I'm sure it is, right? Where you want to retire confident. But that's not the only goal, financial goal that many of us have. Often there's, okay, I want to send my kids to college, right? I want to have my house paid off. I want to do this. I want to go on a vacation every year with my family. All these things are financial goals, right? And we have to start prioritizing where our money goes, right? And if you're not prepared for retirement, okay, you may want to look at putting more into your TSP, but what other priorities do you have, right? And for some people, so they say, hey, I'm willing to work an extra year or two or however long so that I can make sure my kids can go to that college that they want to go and I can pay for it. For some people, that is their priority, and that's okay. It's up to you to decide how you want to prioritize your money because it's different for everybody. I know a lot of people say, hey, now I'm going to retire the way I want to retire and my kids will figure it out, right? That's another on the other side of the spectrum. And that's okay too, right? There's all kinds of different ways on how you can allocate your funds, but we all know our funds are not unlimited. It's limited, right? There's a limited amount of resources and finances, and there comes a point where you got to decide, like, okay, I could put this extra money towards paying off my mortgage. I could put it into my TSP. I could put it to my kids' college. I could do all these things. Where should it go? Where should it go? Now, when it comes to the decision, hey, should you pay off your home early, put some extra payments every year towards that, or put money in the TSP, there's a couple of things to think about. First, what's your interest rate? Right now, interest rates are really, really low, right? So often we get a much better return in the TSP, but there's other things to look at. There's like, okay, when do you want to have your mortgage paid off by, right? If you can expedite your mortgage just enough so come retirement that's paid off and your expenses in retirement then drop because you don't have a mortgage payment, that can maybe be worth it to do a little extra. But it depends. It depends how close you are to that, right? Because again, money in your TSP will probably grow a lot more than 2 to 3% depending on how you're investing it and depending on what your mortgage interest is. So that's one thing to think about as well. Now that you've kind of organized, like, okay, these are my financial priorities. I want to pay for my kids' college. I want to retire confident. You have to start prioritizing which is most important because you may not have enough money for everything. You have to prioritize and start going down like, okay, what makes sense, right? Where do you want to prioritize your money? Now, once you prioritize and say, okay, my focus is going to be paying for my kids' college and then retiring confident, right? It's like, okay, what are the best ways to do that? Well, if you want to pay for college, the TSP may not be the best place to save money for that, right? You may want to look at a 529 plan or maybe just saving in a brokerage account and investing there. There's different tools for paying for your kids' college, right? You want to find the account and type of investments that make sense for that, right? But if you're saving for retirement, hey, the TSP can be a great tool, right? Now, for those that are retiring early, potentially with a VERA, a VSIP, that kind of thing, or maybe just retiring before they have access to their TSP, whether it's 50 if you're special provisions, 55 if you're a normal federal employee, or 59 and a half, depending on the rules and when you retire, right? You may not have access to your TSP right when you retire. So what money are you going to use to fill the gap? If you are retiring early, are you working another job, right? These are all the things to consider when thinking about where you should put your money. And I know, hopefully, this isn't just more confusing, right? I'm just saying there's lots of levels to this, right? And the TSP is a great place if you don't know where to put extra money. Okay, TSP is a great place. But we have to think about our life in a holistic way of, okay, where do I want to allocate my dollars? Where do I want to put it to make sure I reach all of my financial goals? And while retirement is a major one, a huge one, you don't want to forget everything else. You don't want to forget everything else. You want to enjoy life. You want to do all these things and prioritize as much as you can to focus on what is most important to you. So those are my thoughts for today. If you have any comments or maybe if you want to share your philosophy of how you like to allocate your funds and how you want to do it, put in the comments below, share. And there's certainly going to be differences in philosophy, and that's okay. Don't eat each other alive down in the comments. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.